Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome today to my review of the SEIKO ARNIE reissue. Now arguably this is the only SEIKO reissue of the last couple of years that hasn't been a blatant cash grab by the company. These are plentiful and these are relatively affordable, coming in at just over $300 US. Now it was launched at Baselworld at the beginning of last year, gradually filtering onto market towards the end of 2019, so I'm a bit late to the party as usual, getting one on the channel for review. But by way of compensation, today I offer you not one Arnie, but two Arnies. Big shout out to a subscriber and friend of the channel, Sumo. He loaned me not one but two Arnies from the three he currently owns. He's clearly a bit of a fan then. There are a couple of reasons why I haven't jumped on this particular model, either picking one up for myself or getting one on the channel for review. The first is the looks. Even for someone who is steadfastly stuck in the 1980s, the looks are a bit of an acquired taste. And then there is the frankly foreboding diameter dimension of 48 millimeters. I cannot remember the last time I reviewed a watch that big on the channel, and I've only ever really gone up to 44mm for my personal collection. However, I have now spent a couple of weeks with these watches. Has the watch changed my mind? Let's flip the camera and find out. Double Arnie. Kind of like that film The Sixth Day where he acted opposite himself. I love Mr. Schwarzenegger, but I think one of him is quite enough per movie. Thank you very much. But I've got two of these watches to show you today. Why are they referred to as Arnies? Well, they are the reissue of the H558 by SEIKO, which Arnold Schwarzenegger famously wore on his wrist in half of his movies in the 80s. Most famously Predator and Commando. It's Predator that I used for the thumbnail of the vid today. Now this one is a reasonably faithful reissue. It was a groundbreaking watch for SEIKO at the time. It was their first Ani-Digi diver, and this one has carried over many of the features of the original, but it has modernised them. And it has increased the size all the way up to 48mm, like I said. But if you try one of these on, you may be surprised. It is not as unwieldy as you might first expect it to be. This paddy one is the SNJ27, the all black one is the SNJ25. I will show you both of them on wrist later on. So the dimensions are the same for both watches, 48mm in diameter, 15mm thick though, and only 50mm lug tip to lug tip. So SEIKO are always very good at keeping that lug to lug as short as possible. That's one of the critical dimensions as to how a watch wears. So you can have a big chunky diameter dimension, but as long as it's fairly compact in terms of its lug to lug length, it won't wear too badly. Drilled lugs, as you can see here, for convenience as well. 22mm lug width and only 115 grams on the supplied rubber strap. And another factor helping this watch wear better than you might think is a relative lack of weight. There's about 85 grams in the head of the watch, the remainder coming from that strap. So stainless steel construction to the case and case back of the watch. That is a plastic shroud, you can see, very much like the Tuna. It's pretty much a best of greatest hits of all the SEIKO range here. There's obviously the Pepsi bezel from the SKX009. The hands and indices are pure SEIKO as well, and we've got a very Tuna-like case with that shroud on here. But look at the layout here. We've got three different crowns, or two pushers and a crown. All of these are screw down on the other sides of the case. That is unique to this Arnie. So that's what it looks like, but what actually is it, and what does it do, and how does it do it? Well, it's a solar quartz Ani-Digi dive watch. SEIKO X, part of the Prospex range. This is the paddy version. It says there's solar, divers 200 meters, so a genuine ISO certified 200 meter dive watch. We therefore have 120 click unidirectional rotating dive time bezel with that Pepsi coloured aluminium insert. It feels a little bit light on, a little bit notchy, as is the way of low end SEIKOs, and typical to low end SEIKOs, there is a bit of chronic misalignment. I'm going to blame the bezel insert rather than the chapter ring in this case. It just doesn't quite want to line up. You can access that bezel via the gaps in the shroud, pretty much where your fingers would be, where they would want to be. That is a piece of flat Hardlex crystal, which is SEIKO's own mineral crystal, no anti-reflective coating on that. Now we do have some lume on the dial. The hands and the indices are all fully lumed, as you can see from the Lume video. This is SEIKO's proprietary Lume Bright. The Arnie competed reasonably successfully in Lume Wars episode 4 the other day, but it was beaten by a citizen, so don't talk about it too loudly. I'll leave a link in the top right corner of the screen. As you can see there, the indices last quite well, but the hands fade quicker than the indices, which is never ideal. It should be the other way around. There is a second option though. That top pusher up there at the 10 o'clock operates a light amongst other things. As you can see now, I can operate a backlight there in addition to the loomed hands and indices. So how does this watch work? Well, the crown at 3 o'clock works as normal, as you'd expect it to. You can unscrew that down. It does have a kind of discernible click there, much like the Braun digital watch that I owned last year. These two, somewhat counterintuitively, are just pushers. They're not crowns. You have to screw them in to get access to the pushers. That does mean though that if you unscrew them, if you pull them all the way out to their extremities, that locks them, so you can't actually operate either of those two buttons. So if you look at the digital display at the top of the screen, I'm going to cycle through the features by pressing the button down there. So day date, that is a second time zone. We have a stopwatch operated by using the top pusher, so start, stop and hold to reset, and once again press that bottom pusher, we have an alarm. So how do you adjust the alarm? Well, to adjust the alarm all the time, you pull the crown further out and you'll see it start to flash and go into adjust mode. Roll the crown forward and it starts to adjust it by the hour, and there is a noticeable click when you do that. One more push of the bottom pusher takes you into the minute mode. You can roll that to set to the right time. When you're finished, just push the crown back in, and as you can see there, the little alarm light goes off. So to adjust the time, we'll go into the time mode. Now the digidisplay and the hands, the analog hands, are slaved, so they work in conjunction with each other. So if I pull the crown out again, it'll start flashing, cycle through to the hours, make an adjustment there. I'll roll it forward by 2 hours, then I'll leave the day in the week, leave the year, and just go back to the minutes. I'll make an adjustment to the minutes as well. So we're moving it forward by about 2 hours and 20 minutes. If I depress that crown, look at that. As I said, they're slayed, so the analog handset adjusts to the digital time zone. Easy as that. So not perhaps all that intuitive. You do have to spend a couple of minutes learning how to work all of this out, and not exactly radical by 2020 standards either. A $15 smartwatch does all of this and more, but it certainly does a hell of a lot more than your average SKX does. Case back is high polished stainless steel and clearly a scratch magnet. Screw on helping with that 200 meters of water resistance. Usual spec sheet including proudly made in China, and the SEIKO wave there in the middle. Once again just advertising that it is a special edition and part of the Prospex range. No bracelets on these, but the rubber strap is a cracker. Super soft, super comfortable. It's got again the SEIKO wave on that side. Only issue with this is there's a bit of a mismatch. It's a brushed finish on the retainer and a high polish on the buckle. SEIKO branding underneath, but super comfortable in operation. But let's get it on wrist. I'm sure a few of you are keen to see how it looks on my 7-inch wrist and to hear my impressions as to how it wears. I've been wearing this one pretty much for the last 3 days now, and I must say it neither wears like a big watch, and it doesn't particularly look like a big watch either. I have no problems. I thought it would look like a giant carbuncle on my wrist, 48mm, but it doesn't, and it doesn't wear like one either. Less than 120 grams, compact lug to lug, no protrusion from the case back, super soft and comfortable rubber strap, all really work in its favour. I mean, I'm not going to tell you it's a small watch and guys with 6¼ wrists will be fine, because you probably won't, but guys with average size wrists or larger don't necessarily be put off by that diameter dimension. It really does wear a lot better than you might think. Does my wrist look small in this? There it is outside on wrist, and as I said, it actually wears quite well. No anti-reflective coating on that hard length. SEIKO don't even bother giving us sapphire, and they certainly don't bother undercoating the hard lengths, but no doubt there will be a sapphire replacement from Crystal Times or another manufacturer if they haven't already made one. Perhaps a face only a mother could love, but certainly one that you get used to after a couple of days. Sumo, the man who owns these watches, says this is his go-to combo. He enjoys the black one and he wears it on a NATO. 15mm thick, you can pretty much get away with a NATO under this one. You know, it's a big watch anyway. It's not really going to notice the extra mil or so that comes from a NATO strap. He recommends a drab olive and either a grey or a black one with the black. I think he's right. So there isn't going to be a dedicated moans and niggles section today. I think I've made my few gripes with this watch obvious over the course of the review. Hard legs, I always moan about hard legs. I'd much rather have sapphire. I understand why they do it. It scratches as opposed to shattering, but I'd still much rather have a piece of sapphire on my wrist than a piece of mineral crystal, regardless of that. The module isn't exactly intuitive. Screw that out, roll it forward, unpop those, press that, roll that, press that, squeeze them all back in again before you put it back on your wrist. But I'm sure with a bit of time and a bit of effort, it's a watch you could get used to, especially if you were going to wear it as part of a regular rotation. But would you wear it as part of a regular rotation? It wears better than the dimensions suggest, but it's still a big watch. I have warmed up to this watch over the last week or so in a way that I wasn't necessarily expecting, just because it is so much more comfortable than I thought it would be, but I don't think I'll be jumping on one of these anytime soon. Sumo actually offered me the Paddy one at a great price. He picked it up used at a great price, offered me it at that same price, but I'll politely decline. He goes to the gym regularly, I don't, and I reckon you need a set of biceps like Arnie's to really do this watch justice. So there you have it, double Arnie for our combined viewing pleasure today then. I must say I have been impressed with these watches. They're versatile, they're flexible, and they're still relatively affordable, coming in at just over $300 US. And it doesn't really feel or look as huge as that 48mm diameter dimension suggests. I'm not going to kid you here, it's still a big watch, but it's one that I would be comfortable wearing, and I never thought I would say that about a 48mm watch. I think the super soft rubber strap has got a big part to do with that. It's only 15mm thick, if I can say that, and having reviewed a couple of 20mm whoppers that were just ridiculous recently, 15mm isn't all that bad. 50mm lug to lug is not all that bad either, so if you have been considering one of these for yourself but have been reluctant to make the purchase because of the on-spec dimensions, I suggest you go to your local high street shopping mall, if they do indeed stock Seiko, and try one of these on. It may be more pleasant on wrist than you thought. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.